Welcome to the Judgment Free Zone. You've downloaded the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast with Matt and Amy, recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois. Welcome to episode 89 for October 14th, 2024.
Well, hello there, children. Welcome back to your freak show that is the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. Those who've listened before notice I didn't say weekly because it's been a minute. We kind of had the COVID roll through the studio.
We've just had a lot of things that came up. Like we were real busy.
We got very busy.
We got busy, and then
we got sick.
And then we got sick.
But, you know, look at this way. We don't need our booster shot now, so we're good there.
Yeah, I finally got the vid. Finally.
Yes. And then she was, you know, as marriages are, she shared it with me. I thought I was in the clear, and then I wasn't.
Oh, my gosh. Guys, I mean, it was one of those that it took me out.
It just made you very, a lot of sleepy time.
Yeah, I mean, but like
sore throat.
Sore throat. But it started with your typical, like you think it's going to be like, just the flu. The body aches, fever, that kind of stuff. And then that went away. And then I started to feel better. And then, so it was like, that was on a Friday. Saturday, I decided, I'm feeling better. Let's power through. Sorry, people I exposed you to. And then Sunday, it was just like, nope.
So I
sore throat came in and didn't go away until like Wednesday. I mean, it was just, it was bad news. I think I finally did I finally go back to work on that Friday?
Yeah, full week.
Yeah. And even doing that, it was like, I gotta go.
I dug out some of those old COVID tests, and I'm like, it probably won't be. Like, I don't. I'm like, Amy, you couldn't have COVID.
Here's the thing.
So we did it twice.
Even though we took that test because we had
a bunch.
Well, we did, but they were hilarious because it was like completely dried up.
A couple of them were, yeah.
But honestly, it's because we were supposed to be with our small group that we're leading at our church. No matter what, I had no business. I don't care if I had COVID or if I just had the flu or whatever. And I think that is one of the.
And you didn't treat it any differently, but. But it was nice to be able to test. So you're like, okay, you really are sick, and we really don't want to give this to people. So
I know, which is stupid to have to test and just say, I'm really sick, because I really was sick.
Yeah, you didn't need you shouldn't have had to have a test to say flu or otherwise. You don't want to give whatever that was to people.
Exactly.
But anyway,
but I shared with you.
But in the last podcast, we had Sister Susie in with your brother, our brother-in-law Eric, because your dad was having some heart attack issues, but he seems to be on the mend.
He is on the mend. I mean, the man is surviving and doing really pretty well, all things considered. And we just keep praying for him to keep that ticker going.
Modern science is pretty amazing.
Yeah, so
it is.
But no, he's doing well.
It is. He's quite the gift. And speaking of gifts, Amy, you are. Well, I'll say our friend, but your friend, Suzanne, your business partner, your partner in crime and all this, sent you this lovely care. It was one of those care packages, like, I wish I cared about people as much as people like her, because it was so thoughtful. It had like this little mug and this little...
it was like three... It was like this coffee mug, because her and I have never met in person, but she is like turned into this, like, I mean, she's a family member.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel about her. And
your sister from another mister.
I guess, yes. Yeah. But she made me this really cute, and maybe we'll show pictures in the YouTube version of this. But she sent me one of those really cute mugs that has her state and my state.
Like
that little cute
hearts across,
little connection thing, and
then a big tumbler that has Arizona things. So she's out in Arizona.
All these cactuses and everything. One of those kind of like a Stanley. Giant one of those. And then she sent me an Ember.
The Ember, like rechargeable coffee mugs that keeps your coffee warm or your tea or whatever.
Yeah, and I have to say that is pretty awesome, and I am sharing it with you.
Amy goes, that's a great gift idea. I'm like, really? I've only been asking for one for about 4 years now.
Well, maybe.
And I didn't need one.
Maybe this year. Maybe I'll put that on the list
Now that we
from the
share-
kids.
Now that I can use her mug when she's not using her mug. So.
But it's what's funny along with that though is I realized, as you have done for years with me, I have my coffee. I make my big. I have one of those. I have a lot of them. Those Ray Dunn mugs. So it's a big mug. And I make my coffee in the morning, and I drink it pretty much, through the morning. But I discovered that I do like cold coffee.
You basically like.
I like to
homemade iced coffee.
I like to make it and then just keep going with it.
Slow brewed iced coffee.
Because I could not. I put it in the little mug and I'm like,
it's still hot.
Oh man, this is really hot. Now, what that mug has been perfect for
is your tea.
It's tea.
Because here's the thing, your tea gets cold, you like it warm, so you put it in the microwave and then you
forget
leave it
about it.
Yeah.
For hours, and then I come back and I try to reheat it, and then I forget it.
And super handy when you're sick because you can have a warm cup of tea
It
right
really
there. It
was great. Mm-hmm. So I would highly recommend this as the gift to this holiday season.
I mean, they've been around for a minute, but yeah.
But I didn't. I was
every time I've looked at it, I've been told I didn't need one.
You don't need
and then
one.
as I open
That's
up, I'm like, seriously, she got you one of those? First off, does she like you that much? Second off,
sweet Coach Suzanne,
you win.
Thank you so much. I absolutely appreciated it and warmed my heart.
And your tea.
And my tea. So it's pretty awesome. So.
All right, Coach Amy. Let's get to our drinks of the week here real quick before we get to our interview with Tanya.
Week. Go ahead, Matt. You start.
I actually have two. One I found, and you'll only be able to see it on the YouTubes. Of course, I guess you'll only see any of this on the YouTubes. But
true story.
Yeah. I found this. So we've always gone, our two go-tos are Benny's and Hy-Vee in around here. They've got the best kind of
NA selection. They really do.
I mean, there's other choices around town. But
so you went to Friar Tuck.
So I haven't been to Friar Tuck in a while. A little scattered all over the place. Nothing different than you can get at your Hy-Vee or Benny's necessarily. But I did run across, and it was only sold in single bottles. It's called it's Polish, so I'm sure I'm...
KULTOWE?
It's KULTOWE? PROZDROWOTNE. I don't know. It's a Polish lager. Let's put it that way. That's the easiest way.
It's pretty good.
I found their website all in Polish, so luckily Google could translate it for me. So that helped me quite a bit. But no, it was really good. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. So I bought a bottle of it.
We'll have to go and get another.
Which is something I appreciate. I'm like, and I think Hy-Vee will sell you individual cans of some of the NA beers. But it's kind of neat to be able to just have one, see if you like it. You always had to buy a 6-pack.
Very good.
But the other, because it is still October and Oktoberfest, not all of them, most of them are still available. Athletic Brewing's Oktoberfest, always a solid one.
Yeah.
Always a solid one. I still say Untitled Art wins. I would put Athletic and Go as kind of a tie, and then I sadly saw I partake. Yours is kind of on my fourth. It's just really light.
It's really light. And when I'm looking for a Oktoberfest, I guess I'm thinking more of a full-bodied.
I think that's it.
I think
your brain thinks Oktoberfest, but your taste buds
I go to Guinness or like a milk stout or any of the October.
Yeah.
Throwing in the cinnamon.
Yeah. It's partakes as good as a beer. It's just not what your brain's gonna think is Oktoberfest.
True story. So mine.
You do not have a beer at all, but this is our new love.
But this is definitely
your new addiction.
A fall flavor.
It is limited edition.
Yes, it's the limited edition Liquid Death, which that always makes me feel weird that I'm drinking this. It's called Psycho Cider, and it's it kind of has this appley.
Yeah, I hope it goes.
Flavor.
I hope they carry it through the holidays too, because it's really good.
I really like it a lot. It's been, and since isn't it a 0 calorie?
Yeah.
No, it's 20 calories.
Oh, it's 20. Oh, because of the
20
flavor.
calories.
The regular water would be 0.
Got some 4 added sugars, but
if you really want, I mean, you can buy a Liquid Death cold plunge. It is $1,700, but
I just think I'm good on that one.
But no.
I think we are going to be filling it up now.
Now that your
the tomatoes have been moved out. Tomato plants are done. We have moved into, I think we can go ahead and start doing some cold plunging. Clearly, I need it.
There you go.
And then the other thing we do not have on this list, my darling, this past week, we celebrated 25 years.
Of glorious marriage. And speaking of, what keeps our marriage together, Amy? Our weekly marriage guide that you can download right there in our links. Thank you for the. And while you're there, you can download our Beyond Spirits 7 Tips to Start Your Alcohol-Free Journey.
And soon, I'm going to be, probably next show, we'll probably put out, maybe around November. Last year I did that Advent calendar.
Oh, yes.
And, just tips and things that's coming up, things you can do. So I'll be putting that out there as well. Kind of some fun stuff.
So, Amy, tell us about Tanya and this upcoming seminar or whatever.
First off, we interviewed Tanya Gioia. I said it right earlier, but now I'm stumbling. But Tanya, what we're talking to her about today is emotional sobriety.
Yes.
Right? Okay, I got that right. And really, Tanya's story is, emotional immaturity to living fully alive and thriving in emotional sobriety. I mean, she's been sober for, I think she said, 15 years, like that. But her story that she's going to share is really about how she got into some deep therapy, the story about like some of the things around with her child and how she was creating a lot of chaos, like many of us moms have done. I would say I would include me in there as well, like this. But really, she talks about emotional sobriety and really how the work that she did around this, it's ultimately just improved her family relationships, and now she ended up becoming a coach as well. So she works with people on both relationship and recovery coaching. And so let's just go to the interview now. Well, welcome to the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. This is Tanya Gioia, and she is also a podcaster, and she is the creator of the Blessed Family Recovery Summit. But before we get into that, we wanted to jump in and actually first start off by asking like where you're from. We're also going to wish you a happy birthday and thank you so much for being on the show on your birthday. So we'll send you the gifts in the mail.
Awesome. Dark chocolate only,
All right. Mark that down.
Don't put raisins or anything in it. No.
I love it. So if you can kind of just, give us, where you're from, I know that you're a mom as well, but tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll just kind of go into your story.
Awesome. So right now I live outside of Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I've been a Coloradan from 2001. So I claim this as home. I grew up in the Midwest, went to school in the East, did some time down in the South. I've lived in a lot of places, but, this is home. When you have to descend from the mountains, you're like, when can I get back?
Oh.
And we've raised our boys here up in the mountains in small mountain towns. Just loved it. We ski, we dirt bike. The boys do every sport underneath the sun. I grew up riding horses, just a super active outdoor family. And my husband was the one with the brilliant idea. Once the boys kind of unfortunately timed out of horses, they decided that they didn't want to ride anymore. He said, the best shot we have, Tanya, at keeping them off their devices is to take them out in the desert on their dirt bikes. And it's been fabulous. It's been absolutely wonderful. I ride too, but hold on to your hats. At one point, I looked at them and I said, boys, I don't need to go everywhere as fast as I possibly can. I had 3 heads whip around at me and go, why are you on a dirt bike? I'm like, because I like riding the dirt bike. We ride in a reserve that has wild horses, sometimes sheep. It's a beautiful desert, all that kind of stuff. So the boys headed off riding up and down the hills, and mom's doing touring. I only get in trouble when I don't come back when I told him I'm supposed to come back, because then I've got 3 hunters out there in warrior mode going, where is she?
That's so awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun too.
It has been a blast. And for any moms out there, I know I was a girl. Girls are scary. This can be kind of tedious. But for boy moms, camping is the best thing under the sun. You get to build fires. You get to spit. You get to throw rocks. You get to scream, yell, pick up sticks, do all that kind of stuff. That has been a saving grace for me as a boy mom, of getting them outside and just letting them do that warrior stuff. They love it.
Oh my gosh,
That's
I love
awesome.
it. How old are your boys?
So they're 17 and 19 now. I am ending that phase of full-time momhood, which is going to be heartbreaking. On the other hand, it gives me a chance to really step back into me. Not that we're ever not a parent, but to do me full-time rather than having to have dinner on the table at a certain time or making sure that the basketball shoes got to school with the child.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm with you. I
The
know.
the instrument making it to band camp,
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
you know, those things.
Boys don't remember a lot.
Hey, I'm at camp. I'm at band camp. Could you bring my instrument?
Oh no.
Kind
And
of
he drove himself.
Yes.
I like.
Yes. Well, that's what I said to the youngest. We go to church the next town over because it's a Celebrate Recovery church. It's the one we chose. It's really good for us. And I said, you will get your license at 16. He's like, I don't need to drive. It's no big deal. I'm like, no, you will get your license. I'm not going to haul you to your friends, to youth group, to all these things that are still good, but you need to go.
Oh wow.
You don't have to get your license, but I quit driving. I hear
Yes,
you. I hear you.
exactly. Oh, that's so great. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your recovery story?
Absolutely. My naivete around drugs and alcohol and substance could fill a room. I mean, I just was not on target. Now, in my household, both my grandfathers were Southern Baptist preachers for their final career in their lives. My father did drink alcohol. My mom didn't. But when my mom's parents came to the house, all the alcohol got hidden. Everything. So I got a really interesting message and I went, I don't really know what this means and I didn't take it apart. Well, let's fast forward. I am in Colorado. I'm working on a guest ranch. I meet the chef. He's wonderful. We start dating. He shares with me that he smokes a little pot. I said, well, not really part of my life. He said, well, let's try it and let's see. Right. So we do that. Things get more serious. I'm like, I can't marry you unless you're sober. Now, I'm still having occasional drinks at the bar. It's never been a big thing for me, but it is, part of our lifestyle. He tells me he's going to get sober. He goes to AA. I go to Al-Anon. 12 steps, 12 months. We're out of here. We got this taken care of. Drive. Right? And I laugh at myself looking back at this going, you were so clueless as to your life, as to his life. And when we fast forward this even more, we look at the fact that I needed him because I needed to really grow up and be the person I have become. And without the issues that we had in our lives, I wouldn't have become this person. I was dating another young man before I came out to the guest ranch. I would have run him over, made his life miserable, been a bully, been just a horrible person. But this situation set me on such an edge that I am thankful for the addiction that was in our lives. The next thing that I found out was not only was this really serious, and was it serious to the point where we had to separate for 23 months, that I had become a controlling, highly difficult to live with, angry rage monster that had been latent this whole time, and I had displayed it a little bit in college when things got rough. I had displayed it with other romantic relationships, but when life really got tough, it just blew up everywhere. So I go to Al-Anon, I get a therapist, I do the work, I do those things, and I think we've kind of leveled out. But here's where my story of recovery really begins. My son, who had been through this trauma with us, our oldest one, who had been through a lot of trauma with us, he was really struggling with relationships, with how he handled himself, with what was going on. And this was kind of early teens. We had a major incident, and lucky for us, the police were not called. The family said, hey, we can't be friends anymore. It was our closest friendship. It just broke my heart. But they did the right thing. You know, when the wolf comes in sheep's clothing, it needs to be dealt with. So we put him in therapy. He's in therapy for about a year when the therapist comes to me and says, it is not emotionally safe in your house for him to do the deep work he needs to do. If there's anything that strikes a knife in a mother's heart, it's not being able to provide emotional safety in the house. And that's where almost all of this got started, about emotional sobriety. So I very gently raised my hand and said, okay, I'm the one who needs to do the work. So for all those mothers out there listening, you changing can change everything. What could have been not having a relationship with my son, possibly having to remove him from the household because the drywall was being smashed, turned into, after multiple years of EMDR, turned into a loving relationship where when my 19-year-old is off the rails or when mom is off the rails, we have code words. We know what to do. We know how to interact with each other. And it allowed me to build emotional safety into the house so that my particular issues, my fixer issue, my controlling issue, my either help me or get out of my way, steamroller, rage issue, came under control of God. I'm taking my thoughts captive. I'm looking at who I am, and I'm not making either my husband, my son, whoever has offended me at the moment, my dumping ground. That was a huge shift for me. And that's why I talk so much about emotional sobriety. I did quit drinking about, I was calculating this the other day, about 15 years ago, not because it was putting me under the table, but because I couldn't emotionally manage myself the next day. And I thought, I'm doing damage to other people. But it took several more tries. I have, if you can see the podcast, I have a 20-year chip for Al-Anon Celebrate Recovery. It took a lot of tries to get to a maturity level to where I saw that I really had a problem. It wasn't the other people in my life.
And let's talk about EMDR. Is that right?
Yes.
To say that.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that, because I know people who have been through that, but since you're probably much more of an expert on this, if we could just explain that kind of to our audience.
So EMDR is funny that you asked me that, because I never remember what it means. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So what it is we used to take people in therapy back through their trauma and re-traumatize them, right? And what fun is that? It was a woman who, I can't call her name. She was dealing with cancer treatment at the time, and she was walking outside and she was moving her eyes rapidly back and forth, trying to make sense of what was going on in her life, because she could literally die. As she was doing that, she was able to process the hard things without being re-traumatized. There's something that it triggers in the brain that allows the brain to begin to work through some very serious issues in past life, and to bring them forward without causing re-traumatization. And then when you think about, okay, this is how I felt when that trauma was happening to me, what your therapist will guide you through is, let's replace those thoughts with more of reality of what was happening. And then let's replace them with empowered feelings of, now, typically they do this a lot with adults who had childhood trauma. Now, as an adult, I can say, hey, this will never happen again, because I know as an adult, I can take care of this. I can do these things. So you go from trauma to awareness to empowerment. And what it does, this is how the therapist put it to me, is it takes years off of what people used to do in psychoanalysis. It makes
Mm,
it happen really, really, somewhere between 6 and 18 months, and makes it happen really, really fast. And then it's resolved. So it's an amazing process if you have the opportunity to do it.
that sounds great. I mean, it I know I've never had anybody who's done it on the show and explain it like that. So thank you, because I've heard a lot about it. I've heard like on other podcasts, references to it, but not really understanding it. And so that's great that you were able to do that. Did your son do this type of therapy as well, or?
So he got started with it, and that's when he and the therapist, remember, he's of age, he's 13, 14. So he and the
Mhm.
therapist decided this is not something he can continue with in the household environment that we have provided him with, right? So what happened was, by me going through this is where the power of one comes in. By me going through this, it changed the whole dynamic of the household, right? Because I'm the primary caregiver. I'm the one who is setting up the household. This is horrible, but I'll tell this on myself. So my family would scatter when I walked in the door. I mean, do you want your family to scatter when you walk in? No, you want them to say, hey, how are you? How was the day? What's going on? Let's sit down and have a meal together. They would scatter because mom would come in and be like, why is that not done? Homework done? This done? Where are your shoes? Why are there dishes in the sink? What's happening over here? I came in. I was already having this conversation in the car before I got in the house. I'm like, this is not going to be done. That's not going to be done. That's not going to be taken care of. What I think I'm doing is handling this so we can have a quiet family time later. But what I'm actually doing is I'm bringing my anxiety, my fear, my lack of safety, my lack of understanding of safety of myself into the family, causing enormous tension. Who does that sound like? The drug addict, the alcoholic. They could come in happy, right? You could have the happy one, but you also come in with the angry one. You also come in with the critical one. I'm doing this, there's no substance in my body. This is just me not being emotionally sober.
And coming in with a critical spirit.
Absolutely. Oh, it stuck to me everywhere.
So I can imagine when you were drinking that. I mean, if it's that bad without a substance, when you had the substance, it was even more chaos.
No, it's the opposite. I go to sleep.
Oh,
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somewhere in my dating career, I looked at a young man who was trying to buy me a drink. I'm like, really? I'm a lot more fun without alcohol because you put alcohol in me and boop, I'm out. It's over.
Wow. So you went through all of this. When was this that you went through all of this?
So my boy is, well, like I said, this is where I just laugh at myself for in '03. I walked into Al-Anon, went 12 months, 12 steps, 12 months. We're out of here. We've got this solved. We'll do this and take care of it. That's how my brain works. So that was '03. We're sitting now in 2024, right? So the EMDR hit, what, he was 13, he's 9, but 7 years ago, six
Okay.
years ago, right? And in between there, I did a lot of other
Sure.
programs. That's why I really believe in EMDR. And we were functioning. I didn't realize I had childhood trauma. I didn't realize.
Mm.
So if you think about this, so I only have clear lenses in front of me. But if you think about it, say my lenses were covered in purple. Well, I saw everything through this childhood trauma. I saw everybody through this childhood trauma, was not aware of it at all. And until, we walked through this and I was able to take off the lenses, I couldn't see myself. And that's what I coach women around is, hey, I realize that your husband, your child, there's a lot going on, and yes, the addiction they're doing is a problem. How much of that have you invited in? How much of that can you not see? And how much of that have you escalated by not having good boundaries, not having a solid identity in Christ, and not taking care of yourself? I mean,
Mm.
Amy, I hadn't been to the doctor in 10 years. I hadn't been to the dentist in 15 years. because it wasn't my job. My job was to take care of all my men. That was my job, right?
Wow.
They got to the doctor, they got to the dentist, they got all those places. Now, was I sometimes mean? Yeah. Because my cup was so empty that I was doing all of these things out of just sheer willpower.
And let me ask this too. Was there this sense of this victim mentality? And I'm just asking, like with you, like was it everybody else, if everybody else would just do what they were supposed to do,
Yep.
then you would be fine. It was almost like your actions, and correct me if I'm wrong, their actions are causing me to be like this.
There was a lot of that. So that's where the either help me or get out of my way, right? Either get in, do the dishes, do the things that you need to do, make sure my argument was I wouldn't come in like a steamroller if you guys would just take care of the dishes, get your homework done, make the beds, do whatever needed to be done so that I could have a quiet evening when I walked in the door. Maybe, this was my way of releasing. It was a release valve. Think about what alcohol and drugs are. It's a release valve, a numbing agent. I'm blowing up in rage as a release valve, right? For the overwhelm that I feel. And then the other statement that I've learned really well is when I say, if they would just, anytime I'm there, I'm on the wrong side of the fence. I'm trying to boundary somebody into responsibility, and that never works.
Mm. So tell us, through this process that you've gone through, tell us a little bit about that process. Like, how was that? Because I can only imagine what it would be like to have, your son's therapist tell you he's not going to get better here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do this. I mean, I can't even imagine how that felt, like that gut punch. And then, like, how did you do therapy on your own, or did you do family therapy? How did that process work?
It was mainly therapy on my own. Occasionally, my husband would come in because I was going to make some significant changes, and the therapist and I wanted to talk through it with him before we just went, boom, here we go. My oldest never came back. My youngest did come in just for a check because I'm like, oh, there's stuff I didn't know. I want you to, kind of look and evaluate. So that's all we did. Here's the interesting thing. It was a gut punch, but because I'm a doer and a mover, it gave me something to do, right?
Mm.
And I wasn't trying to manipulate or control somebody else getting into therapy. I was the one who crawled in. I was the one who work had to slow down for me. There were days that I just couldn't manage. And then there were other days that blow up happened, and I would kind of look behind me and go, what is this? And some of that was just a release of leftover old stuff. And we developed some systems in the family that helped with that. And I also was able to look at them and say, what am I doing that really drives you crazy? And this time listen. So when I come in
Mm.
the door anymore, I come in the door, maybe I get myself some food, maybe I go sit down on the couch, maybe I go walk the dog, but I don't say anything to anybody. That's
Okay.
the shift, because things, the counter may still be full and clothes flung everywhere, but the shift is they need some transition time to me, and I need some transition time to them. And then calmly, I can come back a little later and say, hey, we got a lot to do tomorrow. Could we pull together and manage this stuff? Because I can hear some other wives out there going, yes, this needs to get done. It's all dumped on me and those types of things. Then you know what else we did, Amy? We hired a housekeeper. Nobody wants to keep house. We're like, okay, it means we can't go out to dinner this much and we can't do that. But we hired a housekeeper. Now, there were plenty of times in my life that putting food on the table was the best we could do financially. But at that point, we could afford to hire a housekeeper. And I just went, I'm not having this battle.
Mm.
Because here's the lockup. The house is so funny. for some reason, women believe that the way the house looks is a reflection of me, my identity, how I keep myself, and who I am as a person. And Jesus must not love me if I can't keep house. And all of
Boy,
that's wrong. All of
that
that's wrong.
that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Like it has to all be a certain way. Pick up your, and I've heard people, much wiser people, say this to me. You're gonna miss this mess someday. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't think so. But there are those things when you think about the shoes, the homework on the table, different things, and being just that much ahead of you on this journey. I can tell you that when our daughter was home this summer, I never complained to her about her mess. You and I would be like, okay, look at this. And then we would be like, you know what? It's okay. She's going to be, going back off to school, and then the table will be clean again.
Although, is it though, Amy? Is it?
Are you calling her out in public, Matt?
I'm just saying,
yeah, maybe.
the table is clean. It's just I use it also for work.
Maggie had to get her stuff out so Amy could put her stuff down. That was how that worked.
But it does. There's just those things where you look at these things that set us off, and I guess do you know where that came from? Like living. Did you have in your past was that something that you grew up with? Did you have, not to pick on our parents or anything, but was there that sense of things had to be in this order, and if you didn't have them in that order, you would get yelled at? Or
not in that sense. There were expectations, and that's what I was trying to model in my family. And remember, when people get married, it's like somebody coming from Zimbabwe and France, and all of a sudden we're getting married, right? And this is how my culture does it. We don't sit down at the table. We eat in front of the TV or in our rooms or whatever. And we always sit at the table, and everybody puts away their phones and all of that kind of. So you're marrying these two cultures. So we got that going on. I think the biggest thing that I find with myself, with women I work with who are supporting loved ones who are dealing with some level of addiction, is we're trying to control the environment so that we feel safe. Here's the problem. We can control the environment all we want. That doesn't change the addictive behavior, right? So I'm not saying don't set expectations, don't set boundaries, don't ask for these things to happen. I'm just saying, look at what the real issue is. I'm trying to control something that's uncontrollable. The addiction of my husband, the hurt and pain of my son, things going on in the outside world. I'm trying to control these things that are uncontrollable by controlling what I can control. Is my space clean? Are the dishes put away? All those types of things. That's not a bad thing. So I want you to hear that really clear.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad thing to control the controllables. What becomes difficult, and what's the opposite of addiction? Lost connection. People who have addictions are looking for connections, or they're putting connections to sleep because the connections are so painful. So what I really wanted from my boys was everybody to come up and hug me. Did you have a good day? How's your day going? All those types of things. I wasn't getting that. So I came in and started demanding attention. Right? So it really wasn't about what was going on in the space. It was, I need attention, but I don't know myself well enough to get it, thus making myself an unsafe person. What did they want to do when I came home? Split. Right? So not only is the person with the addictive behaviors erratic, we don't know what's going to happen, they're not necessarily safe, but the person who is caring about them is doing things that are making them unsafe. So what are we doing? We're all going to our separate corners. Nobody's connecting. Nobody's getting what they really need. And Jesus is sitting in the middle thinking, yeah, I love you guys. I want you to take on my identity. And all you're doing is running from each other screaming.
So how did you bring all of this back together?
So I'll give you a very simple example. My oldest makes money like crazy, but he spends money like water. So around the time that he was later middle school, they were having a Dave Ramsey Jr. thing at church, and I'm like, okay, I need him to go. Well, the stick doesn't work very well, so I used a carrot. I said, hey, I know you like the Village Inn. If you go to this class, we'll go to breakfast every time. You can order exactly what you want, and then I'll drop you off at the class and I'll go to Sunday school. He agreed. He still wasn't driving. He agreed. So we sit down to have breakfast. This was another really painful moment. We sit down to have breakfast, and he looks at me and he said, what's the agenda for this breakfast? And I went, am I that afraid to be with other people, even in my family, that I need to set up an agenda for every meeting, for every meal, that I need to talk to them about something? Or do I feel so overwhelmed? You could go either way. I feel so overwhelmed that I need to list all this stuff out. And I had the good sense, even though I knew he was calling me out, he didn't understand how much he called me out, to look at him and go, I don't have an agenda. We're just sitting here having a meal. That was a huge shift for me, to look at not hiding, to connecting with my family members just for the fact of connecting, not running. The family is a business in a lot of ways. It has the same components. But if I spend all my time running the family like a business, making sure it's efficient, I'm not going to have any relationships.
And then everybody thinks the only reason you want to get together is because you have something you need to talk to them about.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's very much. And I think we all have people in our in our lives, either in the family or outside the family, that, right? Like if they want to get together to, have a drink or, go out to eat or whatever, like, okay, well, they need something, they want something, there's an ulterior motive. And I think you frame it perfectly of, if you treat your family like a business, you become the HR manager. And well, the only time the HR manager wants to talk to me is when there's something wrong or I need to do something, and done enough times, that's just the expectation.
And who loves HR? I mean, they are probably through no fault of their own, because they're kind of set up in a way that they end up being the hire fire people. They are probably the most disliked people in any organization. It's always like, well, HR did that and HR did this. So I was on the road to being the most disliked person in my family. And that's when I had to take a look at myself and say, you really want connection. And part of you is really afraid. Part of you really values the sufficiency, to the point of you're going to end up alone, because they're not going to want to spend time with you if everything is a constant drill.
Yeah. And I can see how it's an easy, slippery slope, because like, I'm not the problem. They just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Right. Like there's nothing wrong with me. It's why aren't they just doing what they're supposed to do? And keeping, it's easy to kind of cloud your own vision.
And I think it's really hard for a lot of moms who haven't had, because you're describing a lot of, I think there's things that I've done, and I'm sitting there thinking, going back on, ooh, your kids get to a certain age and you're like, you want them to come back. But when we have sat there and put these demands on them, then that's how they're viewing their life. Their lenses have a dark film across them, and they're looking through it that way. And it's so, as we do this work, and I honestly, like you were saying, the addiction, what is a blessing. I look at that from our story, that it's been a blessing as well, that we have been able to take these glasses off. We've been able to, I think, in some ways, do some restoration and be open and be like, no, we want you to come home, trying to have it be a very warm, welcoming environment, not a drill, like, okay, give us, it's been a much easier process, I think, now to be able to have conversations when you are when you are substance free. You don't have that cloud of negativity. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, and maybe not everyone, but I just know from our own personal experience that drinking alcohol gave me a much more negative bias in the world.
Let's put it even more in a context that probably everybody can understand. So my boy, my youngest, who's still at home, said to me, I'd really like to know what a banana split is. Well, we don't really live anywhere where there's ice cream parlors and things like that. So I said, Sunday, go down, get some ice cream, get some whipped cream, get some hot fudge, and we'll make you a banana split. Knowing full well that I was going to eat some and that level of sugar would put me in a stupor for the afternoon, right? And I was going to accept that stupor. So I fixed my bowl, what I perceive as irregular portions, smaller than we would get at a restaurant. I am looking at it going, you've got so much to do for the summit. You've got you've got a class to teach tonight. Are you really going to do this? And I did. Not only did I end up in a stupor for the rest of the afternoon, the next morning, I'm in my prayer closet, I'm doing my meditation, I'm talking to God, I am weeping. I am all over the place for the rest of the day. Imbibing that level of sugar took me so emotionally off balance. It was lucky that other family members were gone for the day. So to look at the things in you, we were talking about Fit Church, to look at the things that I'm putting in my body, and me eating the ice cream bowl wasn't sinful. It wasn't against anything that God has created, but all we have the choice to make it, but not all choices are beneficial. So when we're talking about emotional sobriety, when we're talking about sobriety of any kind, being aware of what will set your triggers off. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Have you put in too many hours? Do you need to walk into your family and say, I'd really like to have dinner with you? I don't think I can emotionally sit here and be pleasant and be kind. I think I'm going to be all over the place. So I'm going to excuse myself and go take a bath, go take a shower, go walk the dog, eat a carrot, whatever you're going to do, right? I've heard so many people who have gotten sober. That's stage one, and it has to happen. But the next piece is you can be sober for 6, 10, 7, 12, 30 years, but still not understand how you emotionally function, what your identity is in Christ, who you are being formed to be, and still act out of. That's what I was trying to pull up. I've got a quote from James. It says James 1. I don't have the exact address. God's righteousness doesn't grow from human anger. So remember, I'm trying to do all these things and push people into what I think they need to be doing for their own good. But God's righteousness doesn't grow from that. And we can look at the prodigal son. Who got it? The prodigal got it. The righteous older brother says, you owe me. We have a contract. He never got it. That's the person I was. And without the addiction, without the hard times, without the therapist saying, your house is not safe, I wouldn't have grown up. God was in every step of it, moving me forward into an adult place. Because what my son didn't need when he was 13 was his mom being a 15-year-old teenager screeching at him.
Yeah. That is so good, because I know that doing the work that I've done, I remember being in an argument with my daughter, who at the time was probably, I don't know, 17, 18 years old. And I am having this argument, and in my mind, I'm like, you are not a teenager. You are not a teenager. You are not a teenager.
Absolutely.
You are the adult. You are just going to not respond as the teenager. You are going to you're going to remain calm. And inside, you're like, it's like a ping pong going all over in your head. But I learned so much letting go and having, like, you would you would be so great. Matt would be so great. We would get done, and as we know, the firestorm of hormones and all of that, if, would leave the room and we
Yeah.
would be, okay, all right. And he would look at me and go, thank you. Thank you. You held it all together. You did a great job. You did a great job. And doing that, I think, has now in turn, we still have those rough moments because we have an adult in training,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to now going, okay, she's home and we're having a conversation. And again, if something comes up, it's like, you're the adult, you have the life experience, you have this, you can just calmly say, you know what, we can have a conversation about this later. Or do you need any information? Do you want me to help you with this, or do you want to just vent? And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to just vent, but it's also, how are we going to move this forward? And so I think that has been something that has happened for us naturally, is well, it is also sitting there going, okay, who's the adult? Who's the adult?
Right. And sometimes what we've let our boys see is our failures too. When the oldest turned 17, he was really struggling with school, and we had begun to do more and more hands off, and he came to us with some, I don't even remember what it was, but we both looked at each other, we looked at him, and at the same time, this was pretty cool, at the same time we said, son, we've been 17, but we've never raised a 17-year-old. You're going to have to give us a minute to figure out what we need to do here, because we're not sure. And we want your input because, like you said, adult in training, he's coming up. He needs to have some of that input. So we had to back up and say, we don't know it all. As much as we'd like you to believe it, we don't know it all, nor do we have all the answers. Right now, we have the car keys, the credit cards, and the mortgage, but we don't have all the answers, right?
That's so
So
good.
remembering that we did still hold all the power, but also very gently saying, which is, I think, what God says to us is, I'm not going to make you do it. And let's talk about what the whole global affair will look like. It was a pretty big thing, but for the life of me, I can't remember what the whole global affair will look like if you do this, and what the natural consequences are going to be, which is what I think God says to us too. He's like, not going to force you into this yet. What do you really want?
Mm-hmm. That is so good. We could keep going.
I know
But
we
Matt,
could.
but I do want to do a very short transition into, tell us about the summit that's coming up October 24th through the 26th.
Yes.
And I am so excited to be a part of it. So thank you so much for inviting me to do it. But if you could kind of just share about the summit and all the great things that you're doing.
So you asked me how the summit came about earlier. The summit came about is in 2010, my marriage had a total blow up that involved what I call cops, courts, and chickens. Get on Sober on Purpose podcast if you want to hear more about cops, courts, and chickens. Total blow up, separation. We figured it out. But I was on the internet because, you can't sleep. When all this is going on, you can't sleep. So I'm on the internet. I am looking purposely for hopeful Christian stories about marriages that come back together. I didn't want to fill my brain with trash. I wanted to make sure I was getting fed in the right way. I'm looking for this, and it was really hard to find. Really, really hard to find. So the summit is something that I put together for all of those people who were like me, for all those people who are like, I know God's hand is in this. I want to keep seeing it. I want to keep moving forward, whether it be a spouse, a child, a parent, a friend, whoever. What we're talking about is hope. We are absolutely talking about hope, and that hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. And that's Proverbs 13:12. And the idea is, I've pulled together 16 speakers, Amy included, to speak on different topics around how they were able to manage their lives, whether the addiction continued, whether it didn't continue. Amy specifically talking about quitting drinking when your spouse doesn't, because that's often a big issue. We're talking about stop being triggered and how to help yourself when others don't change. That was huge for me. There was another one about stop hiding, start healing. I told you about how I was hiding out. We're also talking about getting uncomfortable. One of the things we have to do is get outside of our comfort zone and really see what's going on. We've got several experts on not only substance use disorder, we've got gaming, we've got pornography, we've got folks who have dealt with a lot in their lives and their faith journey. Here's the part that sometimes we don't want to recognize, but we need to recognize. Every single one of these 16 folks came out of a Christian household. What that means is different for each person, but they knew Jesus, they knew who he was, and things still happened. And I think that's where I was listening to this earlier today. Paul keeps bringing us back to, I can be happy in want and I can be happy in plenty. God never said it's all going to be sunshine and roses. What he did say was, I'm going to stay with you. And that's where this summit is to bring you hope, to bring you some more clarity. And as we all know, being compassionate means we need to be compassionate with ourselves. And that's another big piece of this summit. And so we've got a Facebook group, an Instagram group. All of these speakers have offered their best as far as the interview, but also things to take home. Just show up. It's completely free. We want you to participate. We want to pray for you and we want to bless you. And it is October 24th, 25th, and 26th.
And where do I sign up?
So it's the Blessed Family Recovery Summit. I'm sure Amy and Matt will put links down below.
Yep.
Love to have you there. We've got some extras going on. And jump in that Facebook group. Share what's going on. We've all been through it. I can guarantee you probably can't come up with something that others of us have not been through, and we want to speak into your life. That's why we're out there talking about this, because nobody has to go through this alone. Nobody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We will see you October 24th.
Absolutely. Amy, thank you for all that you're doing. Matt, thanks for holding down all the technology and making that happen. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Tanya. That I love it because it's something different we haven't really touched on. And
yeah, it's a great story. I hope you enjoy it. But we did mention that the Blessed Family Recovery Summit is coming up, and that is October 24th through 26th. The registration is open, and this summit is dedicated to supporting loved ones, those who are struggling with addiction, by offering insights around hope and practical guidance. And there will be a link in the bio so that you can go there. It is a free summit, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. I'm on day one, but there's 16 speakers, and just tune in to my channel out on Instagram, and I'll be putting more information out there. But and if you look for our newsletter, I've included the information and the links and everything, and links to Tanya as well. All those resources are available to you.
There you go, kids. Check out the Linkapalooza down below. All right. Thanks for stopping by the Alcohol-Free Marriage More podcast this week, kids. We'll check on you next week. Wishing you peace and love in the cornfields. I'm Matt, along with Coach Amy, and we are
out.